So this season I've kind of decided to play a lot of support, and in Season 10, honestly, I want to try to become a support main for at least a season, see how it works, play a lot of Brigitte, play a lot of Zen, play a lot of Moira, have fun with all that. But while just starting to play this role, and mainly while watching a lot of guides and a lot of VOD reviews and all of that, I've come over some main big problems that I think a lot of people do while playing support. And with that, I kind of wanted to go over some of the big, great differences between a great support player and a terrible support player. With all that said though, guys, let's get started. So I think that the first real key difference is probably going to be who you are healing first. And this one's kind of hard because in a lot of situations there's no perfect answer. Sure, you might have decided to heal the McCree, but maybe if you healed the Anna first, you know, she would have been able to heal up your team and you would have won. There are different situations, and it isn't just 100% flowcharty, but still I'd like to kind of go over, I guess, some of the main things to keep in mind when you are healing people that can maybe make you become a great healer instead of just a average healer. Now the first thing I think is to, in many situations, try to keep your allied support alive. If you can keep your other support alive, then they can supply heals on other characters on your team. While if you are just healing another character on your team and your support dies, well, I mean, you're pretty much going -1 without really doing way too much, and you're missing out on all the heals that would have possibly come out of your teammate. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, an important reason to try to keep your friendly support alive, especially if you're playing Zenyatta or Lucio or Brigitte, because they can't really, you know, heal way too much by themselves. So keeping your support alive is a very important thing. So I think that's usually one of the #1 priorities you should try to keep really healed up. Now, another thing you might want to keep in mind is that putting a Harmony Orb on your key DPS or consistently healing your key DPS as someone like, you know, Anna, or throwing some healing orbs towards your key DPS as Moira can be very good as well, and should be something you kind of keep in mind. You should be trying to heal your most, I guess, just best player on your team. If you have a Genji that keeps making a ton of great plays, then why aren't you making him be enabled to do more of those? Why aren't you keeping him topped off? And sure, sometimes your healing could have maybe had a bit more use on a tank, but if you are keeping these people alive and you are keeping them in a great position to carry the game, that's usually a good decision to go for. Now, of course, if your tank is the one carrying you the game, of course, throw it towards him, but I think that's another way to kind of prioritize, first off, on your support, and second off, on the person that's honestly doing the best on your team. And of course, the final people that you should try to keep alive is obviously your tanks. And what I'm going to say here is that at the beginning of every fight, you should pretty much be spam healing your tanks. And I saw this on one of those VOD reviews. I didn't really understand it, but now I do. As a healer, for example, if you're Zenyatta, for example, if you throw your Harmony Orb on your Winston and he jumps in, he's going to take damage and immediately heal up 30 of that damage, because that's how Harmony Orb works. It immediately heals that up. And if you have the Harmony Orb on Winston at the beginning, well, he's also going to be having that armor, which is going to be repairing at 30 per second, because that's how heals work. But the armor will be making so that the Winston's taking about half damage, depending on who he's fighting, especially against Reaper and Tracer, though, about half damage. So he's going to be essentially healed for 45 health per second, even though technically he's only being healed for 30, because that's as much as Zenyatta's healing does. It's essentially like he's being 45 around. So while it's not ×2 healing, it is kind of similar, and I didn't really understand that, but that is an important thing to keep in mind. At the beginning of a fight, if you can kind of spam up your tanks and keep their just armor around for longer, it'll be easier for you to keep them topped off and easier for you to keep them alive, because the second the armor goes off, your healing is going to be essentially like 1/4 less effective. So that's something you kind of want to keep in mind when you are doing this, and mainly just before any fights, put especially Harmony Orb or just healing orbs or whatever you can near your tanks, keep their armor up, and then of course target your other people depending on what they need. You know, it kind of depends mid-fight, but before fights, that's a thing that you really should start to try to do. Now, to a different point, I guess my fourth point about becoming a better support player, please start to worry about your aim. And I know that a few supports really can't. I mean, Symmetra you kind of can, Moira you kind of can, and Mercy, I mean, you could argue that you need the pistol, but with the other supports, like mainly Zenyatta and Lucio and Anna, please actually put in the effort to increase your aim, and actually practice to warm up your aim. Sure, you don't need the best aim in the world to become a really good support. Honestly, if you just have amazing healing, amazing target prioritization, if you're getting those good speed boosts, those good grenades, those good sleep darts, that's going to be good enough to do well enough. but you could become a much better player and a great player by simply actually putting in effort to hit more shots. And yeah, every other role has to do it. A lot of support players start trying to do that a little bit more, because I know so many supports that just don't really put an effort there, and you can become such a better player by doing that. And one thing I should mention right here is that if you're hitting a lot more shots per second, then you are charging up your ultimate way faster, especially with someone like Zenyatta. I mean, if you're hitting shots, let's say twice as much, you're charging your ultimate almost twice as much, because his healing is so much of a small part of his kit as far as getting his ultimate up. And if you get your ultimate up a lot faster, well, then you're going to be able to win a lot more fights, because a lot of the supports have game-winning fights, game-winning ultimates, I mean, for fights. So kind of keep that in mind when thinking about, you know, should I put an effort to increase my aim? Yes, it is worth it. And no, you don't need to go into a practice range and try to, you know, spend hour upon hour practicing your aim. What I really mean here is just when you're in a game of Overwatch, actually try to hit all of your shots and put in as much effort as you can to do that. You know, that will actually help you improve instead of just kind of being lazy about it and just kind of shooting around and just kind of spamming corners, because that's the easier thing to do. I mean, you can do that, but really to become a better player, you shouldn't really be doing that. Now to my third point right here, what I'm going to say here is that you guys really need to stop undervaluing your own life. I know way too many supports and see way too many supports that go for extremely risky heals and extremely risky plays and extremely risky reses, and they don't really pay off way too much. And what you have to realize is that, sure, sometimes these will pay off, and sure, sometimes going just the extra mile, I guess, for your teammates will work out, but in a lot of situations, you're just going to be killing yourself and putting your team at an even worse disadvantage than that one Winston that jumped way too far ahead of you guys. Overall, just realize that you are an important character to your team, and even though you aren't doing way too much damage, your heals alone can make you kind of win a 5v6 if you are playing it perfectly, especially with someone like Moira. Just don't suicide as much. It happens so much, and really, it shouldn't be happening nearly as much as it is. And if you see your teammates dive in way far into the enemy backline, stay safe. Don't go super close up to try to get more heals. A lot of the times that will just end up in you dying, and sometimes that just kind of throwing the fight. Now to my second point here, don't waste your ultimate. And this is something that I think is probably one of the biggest main gaps between terrible and great support players is ultimate usage. And there could be a ton said about every single support ultimate in the game. But mainly what I'm going to say here, a really key thing to keep in mind is that you don't want to use your ultimate when a fight is already lost. You only really want to use it when either you are completely running out of time and you kind of have to go for it, it's a Hail Mary, whatever, at least I tried. You know, of course, you should do it then. Or when a fight is about even, or a fight is going pretty well for you. Don't use your ultimate just because you're almost dead. Let's say that you're playing a Zen with a Lucio and then a Tracer. You all get grabbed. Sure, you could ult through that, but if the other 3 teammates on your team are dead, what's that really going to do? I mean, maybe you can pop off and win that, but in most cases you probably won't. You're probably just going to die right after you finish ulting, and it's just going to be a complete waste. Overall, just save it and use it when the time is right. I think with most support ultimates, it is pretty easy to tell when the time is right. You hear the enemy press the ult button, and you go for yours when your team is actually doing, you know, half decent and the team fight is pretty tied. Again, though, just stop wasting it, because so many people do this, and it's just a huge reason why you're just going to keep losing game after game after game. And the final thing here I want to talk about is going to be positioning. And positioning does matter for every single role, and I could, I guess, put this on a difference between great and terrible, whatever players. Positioning is just such an important and key part of Overwatch. But to support players in particular, please play far back enough that you can't be dove. Please use the high ground. Please utilize walls. Please get help from your team. And realize that you do have to be dynamic in where you're positioning. You can't just go to the same place over and over and over again and hope that the enemy Hanzo won't shoot you again and again and again. That should be pretty obvious. You shouldn't play near the same corners every single time you respawn and hope that the Winston doesn't jump on you. That should be pretty obvious. And as well, if you do play against a certain dive comp, which can be kind of hard for some supports to play against, please, again, stay far enough back that he can't just immediately hit you with that melee and with that jump. Start backpedaling so that he can't land on you. Do the best you can, bait him out for as long as you can, use high ground so that you can't be dove, and if people get onto your high ground, jump down, go next to your team. There's just a lot that you can do that will overall keep you alive for longer as a support player, and I think that's the main thing to kind of take away, If you are alive for longer, your teammates are going to be alive for longer. If your teammates are alive for longer, then they're going to be able to have more time to make plays, to charge their ultimates, to just do things. And if there's more time to do things than the enemy team has time to do things, well, then you have an increased chance of winning, and that's really kind of what you're looking for as a support player. Overall, as supports, it is sometimes hard to carry a game, and overall as supports, it is sometimes hard to know exactly what to do and know when to be somewhere and what to even think about. But overall, please keep in mind why you are somewhere, and always think about where you should be standing. And especially once you get killed from the last death, think about, hey, maybe I could stand here instead of here next time, and that might increase my chance of life. That is an important skill to try to get used to. And yeah, if you put a lot of time there, I think you will overall be able to improve vastly superiorly than to even practicing your aim. It is such an important skill, just keeping alive. Anyways, with all that said though, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like or comment down below your own difference between a great and terrible support player. Another thing I just thought of was using a lot of communication, because yeah, supports do have some of the best vision in the game, and they do have a lot of ability to tell their teammates what to do. Of course, that won't always be listened to, but that could be another thing that you might want to kind of work at. It's probably not as effective as quickly as, you know, just practicing and getting really good game sense, but that could be another part of the pie that you might want to try to improve in. So there you go with that as well. And if you have any of your own ideas, please leave it down in the comment section down below. Anyways, as always, guys, though, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, hit the subscribe button. As always, guys, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.